Hey guys, Jengar here. We've got another devblog on air development. We've got the Mig-19PT, one of the supersonic tier 6 planes that we're all looking forward to. It was on the dev server on Monday night, but of course I had an evening shift and the next day I had to go to the diabetes center with my son pretty early. So I didn't get a chance to actually fly the plane in test flights and get a feel for her, unfortunately. But it is one magnificent looking plane, that is for sure. It looks absolutely brutal. It's got two engines in the back, looking absolutely sharp there. This upgraded version of the world's first mass-produced supersonic aircraft will become the new top model in the USSR's military aircraft branch. Meet the magnificent MiG-19PT with air-to-air missiles. Fantastic. We're gonna have fun with that. It is a reverse engineered version of the Sidewinder, the American Sidewinder. One of the Sidewinders used by the Taiwanese got stuck in a Chinese MiG-17. The Chinese sent it to Russia and the Russians managed to get it loose and reverse engineer it. So there is that. So they have the same kind of armaments when it comes to these missiles. The history of the plane is it took its first flight in 1954. It became a worldwide sensation. It was the first mass-produced aircraft capable of breaking the sound barrier in horizontal flight after taking off from the ground. Of course, there were already some planes that could do this, but they were dropped from aircraft and then, in a glide downward, they were able to reach supersonic speeds. But this was the first plane to actually take off from an airfield and reach this speed and then being mass produced and used. Although it was the most advanced combat aircraft of its day, the MiG-19 also had certain problems with maneuverability and certain other improvements that also took shape that were then used in the upgraded versions of the MiG-19, which made it eventually a more stable aircraft. The Russians, though, already had at a certain point already moved on to the MiG-21 because of the stability problems with this plane and numerous crashes that they've had with this plane, and they kind of lost faith with the plane. But it did get used after that extensively in other countries, among which was China. The fighter received an all-movable stabilizer that significantly improved its flight characteristics, enhanced control and braking systems, and new, more powerful 30mm guns. One of the most interesting modifications was the MiG-19PT fighter interceptor, which, of course, was developed especially to use the K-13, which was the reverse-engineered Sidewinder air-to-air missile. This missile was strongly influenced, well, almost exactly copied, by the extremely successful American Sidewinder, models of which the Soviet Union received from China. The MiG-19P's flight tests were successfully completed in 1964, and the K-13 missile was used then on an entire series of combat aircraft and remained in active use until the end of the 80s. The MiG-19 itself was modernized several times and participated in many armed conflicts. Over 2,000 MiG-19s were, no, well, that's actually not quite correct. 5,500 MiG-19s of all types were manufactured in the USSR, and slightly over 2,000 MiG-19PTs were produced in the USSR, and more, of course, in China. So there's a bit of history. In War Thunder, the MiG-19PT will be the first rank 6 supersonic plane for the Russian 3 and the first Soviet aircraft equipped with air-to-air missiles. Unlike its overseas competitor, the F-100D Super Sabre, the MiG-19 cannot carry bombs or unguided rockets, but its two turbojet engine give the MiG the advantage in terms of climb rate and acceleration. Both of these engines require an incredible amount of fuel, which limits their flight time to 5 to 6 minutes in web. The smartest thing for a MiG-19PT pilot to do is to climb to a high altitude at the beginning of a battle and then switch the engine to a more fuel-efficient mode. That's quite interesting. That might make it feel a little bit like an Me-163. in use, in which you have, or a key 200, where you have limited fuel. You have to get up to altitude, and then you have to save a little bit of fuel here and there, and then use it in your dogfights and get back to base to refuel. It will be interesting to see how that pans out, or that you can actually save enough fuel that you can stay airborne for quite a bit if you don't use web, for example, because they say it's a 5 to 6 minutes in web. That might mean you have 10 minutes without web. Its frontal armament, consisting of twin 30mm guns, has decent ballistics and will deal almost fatal damage even in short bursts, but hitting a target at the speed at which this plane flies is difficult. As they say, not a simple matter. The Mig-19PT's main weapons are the two K-13 missiles that quite reliably lock onto thermal signatures of running jet engines, turboshaft engines, and certain piston engines from the rear hemisphere of the target. Within the context of the game, the K-13 is virtually the same as the AIM-9B Sidewinder. Some targets can be locked onto at a range of more than 3 kilometers, but the low flight loads, for which the first versions of the air-to-air missiles were designed, make it fairly easy for an enemy with a reserve of energy to evade an attack by maneuvering. So according to this, again, it will be quite possible to actually evade the rockets, but of course when they miss you, they will fly on and they might lock on to something else, so friendly fire is quite possible then with these rockets. And I wonder how long they will keep running as well. Or will they just basically explode in the air after a certain distance is covered? That will be very interesting for how this actually plays out in game and how they work. And I mean, if 5 people shoot out 2 rockets, you have 10 rockets flying around, and if 4 people manage to, avoid those, and they put out rockets as well, then you have quite a bit of rockets flying around. And it might actually become something fun. I don't know. We'll see how that works out. I'm looking forward to it, and this plane looks absolutely brutal, fantastic. I like this. Almost looks futuristic here on this backside design. I quite like it. It looks rugged. It looks strong, and absolutely fantastic plane. I hope it will be fantastic in the game as well. But look-wise, I quite like the look of this plane. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. If you're new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button, become part of this community. If you are already a subscriber, don't forget to like the video, do leave me a comment, and if you really feel like helping out today, make sure to share the video with your friends and let them know about the channel.